body and grinding down the
Okay, we'll start with this. Gabriella Fundora posted this via her social media, and it reads, "Another great weigh-in complete. Can't wait to put on another amazing show for Mexico. Unbeaten up-and-comer Gabriella Fundora, the younger sister of Sebastian Fundora, the towering Inferno. She's going to be in action south of the border for the second time this year, attempting to advance to a professional record. Attempting to advance to a record of 6 wins, no losses, and no draws. The very statuesque Gabriella Fundora, who's in the second year of her pro career as a boxer. She debuted as a professional last year in 2021. She fought 4 times last year. That's the kind of schedule an unbeaten up-and-comer needs to be on, especially one that doesn't come from a very deep amateur background, an Olympic background, a medalist, all that jazz. She's learning on the job. She's getting her experience as a professional. She fought 4 times last year.
4 times.
Fought once this year, last month.
These are experience fights.
Learning fights. You won't find many flyweights with the physical dimensions of the very statuesque Gabriella Fundora. Like her brother, she's very big for her division. She's very big for her weight, flyweight.
And when the time comes, she's going to be a grave threat to anybody at or around flyweight.
The flyweight division, you got 4 active reigning world champions. Naoko Fujioka holding the WBA, Marlon Esparza holding the WBC, Leonela Paola Judica holding the IBF, and Deborah Ana E. Lopez holding the WBO.
On this kind of schedule, Gabriella's going to be ready to fight for a title in no time.
She's very statuesque for this weight, and it's noticeable. She towers over most, if not all, other flyweights in the flyweight division. A capable boxer that fights out of the southpaw stance could pose a lot of trouble for a lot of fighters.
She's only 19 years old.
I think they're doing a good job with her. That's what this schedule communicates to me, this activity level for a young fighter who's just 19 years old. There's no rush. There's no need to put her in situations where she might be over her head with experienced fighters. For a 19-year-old fighter, this is what you want to do. You want to get him out there, and you want to get him out there often.
She fought last month, and here she is again, fighting this month.
This is what you want to see. I don't imagine that Gabriella is going to challenge for a world title just yet. I don't imagine that she's on the cusp of fighting for one this year, though early next year, that seems like a genuine possibility. Based on this schedule of activity, she might have as many as 3, 4, maybe even 5 fights this year.
She's going to be an action south of the border tomorrow night.
Making her bones as a professional, Gabriella Fundora continues to be an unbeaten up-and-comer you want to keep an eye on, somebody you want to watch out for.
In super featherweight news,
a bit of information on what the immediate future might hold for former WBC lightweight champion of Belgium, Delphine Persoon.
Sophisticated operators, we translated this Dutch article to the English language.
All right, David Attenborough, you know how to use Google Translate. Congratulations.
The article reads, on June 11th, Delphine Persoon will fight for the European title in Ardui. She would like to join the semifinals of the WBC World Championship there in one fell swoop. In the meantime, Delphine Persoon has already put together a nice list of achievements, but it is clear that she is not yet finished with her career. She is currently preparing for a big title fight June 11th in Ardui. In 2011, Persoon became European champion in Lichterville after winning against Nicole Bass from Switzerland. A year later, she did the same in Izegem against the French Myriam Delal. The opponent now also seems to be French. Again, Mekhaled. If Mekhaled drops out, the Polish former champion Iva Brodnicka will be in Delphine's crosshairs. Delphine Persoon still has a few months to appear in the ring in top form.
Those are 2 very good fights.
2 very interesting fights for Delphine Persoon, depending on how the cookie crumbles. Though I'm not sure that it will be Mekhaled she faces in June, because I've heard some rumors, some gossips, that Mekhaled may be facing the reigning WBC super featherweight champion, Alicia Baumgartner. And, why would you risk it all against the former champion in Delphine Persoon when you could fight a current reigning champion for a belt in Alicia Baumgartner? I could go for either fight. Doesn't make a difference to me either way. Both are good fights. But I don't get the sense that LM would risk it all against Delphine when she could be fighting Alicia Baumgartner, likely for more money on a bigger platform.
The article states if LM drops out, they're going to try to do a fight with Eva Brodnicka.
The former WBO super featherweight champion of Poland, Eva Brodnicka. And I gotta tell you, stylistically, for the both of these fighters, both LM Mekhaled and Eva Brodnicka, stylistically,
That's rough seas.
they'd be in for a long night with Delphine Persoon because neither of them have the firepower to keep her off. I will say LM's a little younger, a little fresher than Eva Brodnicka
She's a
is.
little more spiteful, too.
Eva Brodnicka is a completely defensively minded fighter, stick and move outside jabber, not one to step into that jab with bad intentions and try to take the other girl out. That's just not the kind of fighter that Eva Brodnicka is. Though whether we're talking about LM Mekhaled or Eva Brodnicka, neither one of the two has proven to be all that big a puncher. So if they ain't got the firepower to keep Delphine off of them, what's gonna happen?
There's reason to believe that LM Mekhaled might go in another direction.
LM Mekhaled may have the option of facing Alicia Baumgartner for the WBC title straight away. So for risking it all against Delphine, you might as well risk it all against Alicia. And when it comes to Eva, Eva's got to know this is a very dangerous fight for her. Eva Brodnicka.
If she doesn't, her handlers have got to know that this is a very risky fight for her.
I don't want to jump to conclusions or make any bold proclamations. I'm just saying that for Eva Brodnicka, a Delphine Persoon fight is one of the more high-risk, low-reward fights that are out there for her.
And because of that, it's hard for me to imagine that she actually takes up Delphine Persoon on her challenge.
In other news, per tweet from Michael Benson, and given the situation in Ukraine, WBO President Paco Verasel has revealed that the sanctioning body are considering removing all Russian boxers from their rankings and not sanctioning any world title, regional title fights in Russia until the invasion of Ukraine ends. That's right. Paco Verasel seems to want to take a stance to the people over there at the WBO. In truth, it's not a half bad idea, not sanctioning any fights in Russia for the time being until this conflict subsides. Though at the individual level, the Russian boxers that they rank,
Those guys.
I don't feel it's necessary to penalize them as individuals because unbeknownst to
Maybe the WBO doesn't know that not all of Russia supports this.
not every Russian man, woman, and child supports Putin's invasion of Ukraine. Not everybody's on board with that. Thus,
Maybe he doesn't know that there are Russian protesters in Russia.
not every Russian man, woman, and child supports the invasion of Ukraine, and they're popping up in the hundreds and the thousands in cities over there in Russia. Thus, judging an individual Russian boxer as a member of a totality, a member of a cumulative, at a time when that cumulative, that nation of Russians, they don't all support what Putin is doing, it seems a bit unjust, seems a bit unfair.
I understand not sanctioning any fights in that region. That much I understand.
It's in keeping with what we're seeing with the Champions League. As of now, the Champions League final won't be played in Russia. They're moving it over to Paris, given what's going on in the conflict in Ukraine.
But judging boxers at the individual level.
When you don't know how those individual boxers feel as individuals in reference to the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, well,
I think he's got it half right.
yeah, you can suspend all sanctions for fights in that region until this conflict blows over, until it subsides, until it's resolved, but
I don't really think it's fair to judge all these guys at the individual level. I don't.
the crisis in the Ukraine is reverberating through every corner of the world, including the sporting world, the world of boxing, so much so that the Anthony Joshua versus Alexander Usyk rematch is in major doubt since the Ukrainian flew back to join the war effort. That's right. Usyk is in the Ukraine right now.
He was in the UK not that long ago, but shortly after that, the invasion started.
Anthony Joshua's prospective world heavyweight title rematch with Alexander Usyk has been plunged into doubt, with the Ukrainian boxer reportedly returning to his homeland to join the war effort against Russia. Arrangements for the pair's hotly anticipated rematch were thought to be at an advanced stage, but the current exceptional circumstances could see plans change.
I think that goes without saying.
You don't need me to tell you that there are certain things in life that take precedence over a sporting event, certain things that take precedence over a boxing match.
Full-scale war being one among them.
For those wondering how the conflict in Ukraine may affect that rematch, after flying from London to the Ukraine Thursday, he stated in an Instagram video, "Some wrote to me that I ran away. I didn't. I was at work, but I'm back. I'm home, friends. We have to unite because it's a hard time right now, and I'm really emotional and worry about my country and our people. Friends, we have to stop this this war. All of us, together.
In case it hasn't registered with you guys yet, this is a life-or-death situation.
This is war we're talking about, and Alexander Usyk just returned to his homeland, which is now a war-torn country that is being invaded by the Russians. It's safe to say that, the Anthony Joshua rematch, it might be in jeopardy. It just might.
Sorry to disappoint you.
But it's wartime. What do you want me to say? Anyone from Vitaly Klitschko, the retired WBC heavyweight champion turned politician, mayor of Kiev. Anyone from Vitaly to Vladimir to Usyk.
Those boys are at war.
For anyone in the West who doesn't understand that. The rematch for May 2022, Anthony Joshua's promoter, Eddie Hearn, claimed this week that the contracts were already signed. It remains to be seen how Usyk's return to the Ukraine will affect plans for the fight to go ahead, given that it had not been officially confirmed. The 35-year-old trains and lives near Kiev, where much of the activity between Russian and Ukrainian troops is currently unfolding.
For all we know, Kiev is on the brink of collapse.
Let me impart to you an inconvenient truth. If you're hoping for something right now, it should be more than just an Anthony Joshua rematch. If you're hoping for something, for this guy, you better hope he makes it out of the Ukraine in one piece. Him, Vitaly, and Vladimir, because that's the situation they're in. It's wartime, ladies and gentlemen. Those boys, they're over there, they're at war.
Full-scale war.
While the alphabet organizations in the sport of boxing, the sanctioning bodies, convene and decide as to whether or not they even want to sanction fights in that region of the world, bullets are flying in the Ukraine.
And that's where Vitaly, Vladimir, and Usyk are right now.
In Ukraine, where any able-bodied man between the ages of 18 and 60 is not allowed to leave the country that is currently at war. Thus, there are certain things that take precedence over a little old boxing match.
But because this is a boxing channel, we have to address it.
And I suppose that if the conflict should in any way impede the rematch they were trying to put together between these two athletes, these two boxers, I suppose that if the crisis over there impedes that, holds it up, delays it, whatever, I guess the silver lining for Anthony Joshua would be as it affords him time to break in this new trainer because he's supposed to be making additions to his corner.
I mean, that's not much of a silver lining, but that is something to think about.
Ahead of this rematch, Anthony Joshua was reported to be making changes to his corner, additions, and, in some quarters, some circles, people felt maybe AJ shouldn't go straight into that rematch. Maybe he should fight someone else to break in this new trainer and see how that works out. And, that might end up happening with Usyk being in the Ukraine and all. I hope he comes out of there in one piece.
And not because of a fucking boxing match.
I don't think very many people here in the West have processed the seriousness of the situation that is unfolding in Ukraine here today. I don't think they've processed that it's a life or death situation. We are talking about war, after all.
Hey, this is just something for you to think about.
In lighter news, I'm sure most of you have heard by now, per tweet from Mike Coppinger via his sources, that Canelo Alvarez and Dmitry Bivol have finalized the deal for a May 7th fight for Bivol's light heavyweight title, the WBA title. An announcement is imminent for the DAZN pay-per-view. It's a 2-fight deal for Canelo, with Matchroom story coming to ESPN. We know that,
Canelo,
per previous reports, Canelo Alvarez had two.
There were 2 offers on the table for Canelo.
One from Matchroom and DAZN, and one from the PBC. And per these reports, it appears he's going the Matchroom route. Mike Coppinger continued, Gennady Golovkin is finalizing his deal for the Canelo Alvarez trilogy fight on September 17th. That fight will take place on a DAZN pay-per-view as well for Alvarez's undisputed super middleweight championship, so long as Triple G beats Ryota Murata in April and Canelo beats Bivol. And let me tell you something.
What?
Bivol, Dmitry Bivol, he's got the most frustrating style for Canelo Alvarez to have to deal with. He's more proven at a higher weight than Jermall Charlo, than David Benavidez, and Gennady Golovkin.
I don't give a rat's furry fucking ass about your inflated opinions.
I don't care how much you want to talk up either Jermall Charlo or David Benavidez. Those guys ain't as proven at their weights as Dmitry Bivol is at his weight. Could any one of those two guys take a clean right hand from Joe Smith Jr. and not collapse?
I don't want to hear it.
Now, there are some obvious questions questions that almost immediately come to mind in light of this news. Since DAZN now has pay-per-view functionality and they intend to stage Canelo Alvarez's next 2 fights at pay-per-views, what are the price points for those pay-per-views going to be, especially for existing subscribers, guys that are already paying month to month or annually, like I do? Do we get to see those pay-per-views at a reduced price point?
Yeah, I think existing subscribers should get a discount.
Yeah, I don't think existing DAZN subscribers should have to pay full price for a pay-per-view.
I got questions about that. What's the price point going to be?
I got questions about how the PBC is going to respond to this, because it seems that Canelo Alvarez is going to be fighting for at least his next 2 fights on the Rival platform, under the Rival banner. What will the PBC do to combat this? You know, they got to try to get some attention themselves for their fighters and their fights. What are they going to do? Charlo versus Caleb Plant on pay-per-view?
That's not pay-per-view worthy.
It's not. There's no belt on the line, and one of those guys is coming off a loss. Ideally, that's the kind of fight you do on Showtime.
Yeah.
Regular Showtime, not pay-per-view. Now, according to Mike Coppinger, Gennady Golovkin is finalizing his portion of the deal. Gennady Golovkin, who's supposed to unify titles with Ryota Murata very soon in the middleweight division, then presumably, should he win, move up to super middleweight to face Canelo Alvarez for all Canelo's belts in the super middleweight division. That's the way that cookie crumbles. That's the way that's supposed to break down. Should Gennady Golovkin lose that fight, what happens to those belts he won at middleweight?
If he loses to Canelo at super middleweight, does he stay a champion at middleweight?
There are questions there, legitimate ones. If Gennady loses at 168 pounds, does he stay a champion at 160, or does he call it a career right then and there? Could we be looking at the end of Gennady Golovkin?
Well, that's what some people think.
I don't think that a lot of people are being honest with themselves when it comes to what remains of Gennady Golovkin, his career, and who he is today as opposed to who he was yesterday. He ain't Kazakh Thunder anymore.
The strategic inactivity we saw last year.
A means to preserve himself long enough to have a big fight, a very big fight. Between Ryota Murata and a Canelo Alvarez trilogy, this guy's gonna turn over one hell of a profit.
So long as he beats Murata and makes it to Canelo.
Whether or not he wins or loses in that trilogy, he will have made enough money from those 2 fights, just those 2 fights, that he ain't ever got to box again a day in his life.
He made all that money from the first 2 fights.
Not even counting what he made off his own name. Now he's supposed to have a big fight over there in the Far East, in the land of the rising sun, against Ryota Murata, who's a bigger star there than either Jermall Charlo or David Benavidez. Those guys, he's a bigger star there than those guys are here. Gennady's going to make very good money from that fight. Even better money from a Canelo Alvarez trilogy, should he make it to that trilogy. And if he loses, if it goes the other way for him, if he gets knocked out,
What do you think? He's going to stick around, go back to middleweight, and defend his alphabet titles?
the face of the middleweight division, the landscape of it, could soon change. Alphabet titles may change hands in the near future.
Gennady goes up there to super middleweight. I think he's going to get knocked out.
I ain't gonna be sentimental about it, regardless of how he looks against Ryota Murata, good, bad, or otherwise. The moment he goes up there to 168 pounds,
Canelo stops him.
that's what I think.